Hi guys, thanks for helping us with the annotation. I'm going to be running you through the site to tell you exactly what are you supposed to do and the interface you're going to be working with. So I'm going to start by registering. Okay, so first you have to fill in the email and password, in addition to age, gender, education, and political affiliations. But you have to know that the last four are just for research purposes, so they won't be directly linked to you. Okay, so here are the annotation guidelines. You're supposed to read them thoroughly before you actually start the annotation. I'm going to be going through them a bit quickly. So you're going to be given a blog article, and you're going to have to pick for each of the following 5 features the level of this following feature. So the first feature we have is credibility. So credibility is the quality of being believed or accepted as true, real, or honest. So the score is basically based on how believable the article is and how much you accept it to be true, real, or honest. So a credible article would be one that you completely accept and trust. A not credible one would be one that you don't trust. A fairly credible is a halfway marker. There's also a can't decide option if you really don't know which of the three it should be. So rather than giving us a wrong answer, you pick can't decide. But don't overuse it, and don't use it when you're not sure between, for example, not credible or very credible. Try to do your best guess and only pick this when you really don't know. Okay, so the second feature is reasonability. Reasonability means being in accordance with reason. So the more the articles have logical flows in their argument, the more reasonable they are. So highly reasonable is if an article is very logical from start to finish. Exaggerated article is one which doesn't seem to have any logical connection between what he's saying. You also have the can decide option. Bias. Bias is a tendency to believe that some people, ideas, etc., are better than others, thus usually resulting in treating some people unfairly. Okay, so the point with bias here is that we do not want you to make someone biased if he has a stance regarding a certain topic or the topic at hand. He or she is allowed to have a stance on the topic as long as he doesn't overly defend it or overly attack it, not biased, as if he's presenting both sides of the argument well, even if he has a certain stance in it. Okay, so objectivity. Objectivity is expressing or dealing with facts or conditions as perceived without distortion by feelings or prejudices or interpretations. So, highly objective is basically a guy just stating facts. Not objective is it's mushy feelings all around. Okay, finally we have the sentiment, the last feature. Sentiment refers to the degree of positivity or negativity the overall text reflects. So, suppose they're talking about a phone that you hate, and the author says this phone is really awesome. Therefore, the sentiment is very positive because the author is thinking positively about the topic, regardless of what you think about the topic. You can give it a score of very negative, fairly negative, neutral, fairly positive, very positive, or the can't decide. So before we go on, I just want to say that you should try to be as fair as possible about all features and try not to let your personal judgments or affiliations affect what score you give. Just give them a very objective one. Now, we have samples for you to view. They can be either clicked through this button here or this link, which will always be here, no matter where you are on the page. So there are 4 samples that are previously annotated that you should go over through thoroughly so you can know, so you can have a better idea about how the annotation actually happens. Uh, in each text of the sample, you have the highlighting. For example, gray highlighting refers to something that deals with reasonability. Blue highlighting deals with objectivity, green with bias, and yellow with sentiment. So after studying this article, we deduced that the credibility is credible, it's fairly negative, very reasonable, highly objective, and not biased. You can also view the sample in full screen to get a better view of it, or if it's in a bigger text, if you're not comfortable with the first one, for preference. Okay, so there are 4 of these samples that we highly recommend going through each. And when we're done, we can start the annotation process. Okay, so here's for example an example article in which you have to annotate, and here are the first 2 features: credibility and sentiment. If you hover over the drop-down box of the feature, you get the definition of the feature to recall. For example, here credibility, we get that it's the quality of being believed or accepted as true, real, or honest. Once you select an option or a level for the credibility, you're going to get in small text the actual definition of this level. Note that sentiment doesn't have this. Here is a box for notes. This is completely optional, but if you have something that you think will help us very much for the actual annotation. For example, it's pretty obvious why you picked these because of those. Feel free to write them here. However, they're optional and you are not required to write anything. When you're done with these two, you click next question, and you get 3 more features. Obviously, hovering over it gives you the value again, and you select the levels for the feature. Now we have the last question: did this article change your preconceived idea regarding the discussed topic? What we basically want to know is if you had an idea about the topic before you read this article, did it influence you in any way? Did it but did you change your stance in some way? However, we do not want you to tell us whether you liked the article or not here, only if it influenced you. We have a prefer not to answer in case you don't want to answer. And you submit the article finally after this, and you'll be given another article to start annotating. So there are 2 more, but there are 3 more buttons here. The first one, change article, is used for when you do not like the article at hand, and it will give you a new one. However, we ask you not to overuse this feature. Okay, view full screen opens the article in another tab with a bigger font for you to see in case you didn't like the first one, or just to give you a more comfortable view. And finally, we have the stop annotation process. Okay, so you are required to annotate for us 10 articles at least. You can do more if you'd like. But we don't expect you to finish them in one sitting. So if you feel like you want to stop annotation for a while, you can always click on the stop annotation button, which will log you out and save your progress, which you can continue later on. Please refrain from closing the tab you're working on and click stop annotation first before you do it.